life.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Morning.
Today is Sunday, July 31st. Almost coming to past the half point mark of our summer. It's gone by so nicely, so quickly. It's a very nice summer rain outside. And people, I guess, decided to stay home and enjoy the long weekend. But I'm glad that you were able to make it, as well as all of our incarnate spirits that are here, to learn about their influence on us. Because that's the theme of the month, is the influence of the spirits in our lives. And today we have a wonderful lecture by Rafael. He's going to tell us about spiritual obsession. What it is, what impacts us, and why we don't necessarily have to fear it, just understand it. To get our proceedings going, I am going to ask Maria Lucia to come here and do our opening reading and prayer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is a message from Happy Life by Joana de Angelis through Divaldo Franco. Thank God for your existence. Praise Him by living a healthy life. Exalt Him with love through duties faithfully carrying out. Dignify Him by being His devoted and faithful servant. Present Him to humanity by being a friend and brother in all circumstances. Glorify Him by working for the good of all, your brothers in humanity. Respect Him by obeying the sovereign laws that govern life. Recognize Him in all and everything through a happy life as His beloved child. Let's close our eyes so we can connect to our spirit mentors, the mentors of this house, and Jesus, our Master. And let's thank God for the opportunity to have a place as this house where we can learn and understand better Jesus' teachings, so we can look at each other as brothers and sisters with the same desire to evolve, to be better, to good to one another. And we ask also the Spirit's mentors to enlighten Rafael during his lecture and open up our hearts and mind for a better understanding of today's lesson. We thank you again, and so be it.
That's okay. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So continue the theme of the month, which is the influence of spirits in our lives. We're going to close with this lecture regarding spiritual obsession. The obsession is a term that we read a lot about, we learn a lot about, and it has a lot of mystery surrounding it. It doesn't have to be this way. Obsession is just part of our learning as evolving spirits here in this planet. So one of the things that, or several things that help us to deal with obsession is understanding what really is, who is the obsessor, what is the mechanism of obsession, and if it is possible to cure it, or what is the real meaning of this curing obsession. So those are some of the questions that we are planning to tackle with this lecture. So hopefully we'll be able to understand a little bit better. So first we start with the basics, as always. Spirits and thoughts. So here we have a picture of a drop of water falling in a river or whatever space with a lot of water. So this is a figure that can be used as an example of how we think, of how we form thoughts. So to make it easier, we know that every spirit has a machine, a device, a modulator, anything that can modulate. When we call modulator, you imagine that you have a bowl of water and you tap the water with your finger. So you see that waves are formed, right? I don't think that is... It's supposed to be a very easy thing to imagine. So we tap the water and we form waves. So this tapping we call modulator. So when I say modulator or this machine, this device, I mean our mind. Our mind does that. We are always tapping the fluid that's surrounding us. So we are forming our thoughts. We are creating these waves. It's not something continuous. Imagine if you just put your finger in the water and leave it there, so soon there will be no waves. So we don't do that. Our mind is always tapping. So that's why the spirits talk about vibration all the time. Vibration, because it is vibrating. So our mind is always tapping the fluid around us. Okay? So the waves that are formed is what we call thoughts. So they go in every direction. So every direction we are sending those thoughts. And those thoughts, they have amplitude, they have frequency, they have all the features that a wave has. So if you read the thoughts, if you receive the thoughts as any receiver, you can understand the quality of the spirit who is emitting those thoughts. Right? We do have no idea what this fluid is. The Spirit tells us that is the cosmic fluid, or some of them call a derivation, the magnetic fluid. In science, we haven't been able to find anything. Actually, in the 2 centuries ago, it was proved that there is no fluid at all. There's nothing. But there is. It's just that our science cannot capture that. We don't understand yet exactly what a thought is. We have no idea. Sometimes we do some parallels with electromagnetism. It's an electromagnetic pulse. Maybe it is. But it has nothing to do with the science that we know today. If we apply the equations, then we calculate everything. It doesn't fit. That's not the way we read from the books. So thoughts, we cannot explain yet. So the way we call is that it's a modulation in the universal fluid, cosmic universal fluid. Okay? So what we need to know is that we are always producing them, all the time. All the time. We're always producing them. We are here today, and we are in a pool of this fluid, and there is waves all around us, from all of us. We are sources of those waves. And we feel each other waves. We feel each other thoughts. So it's like in that same bowl of water that we are tapping before, forming the waves, there's another person also tapping in the same water. So then we have several waves. And then something interesting happens. Let's say, if the 2 waves have the same feature, if they have the same frequency, what do you guys think is going to happen? They connect, and then what happens? So they combine in one, right? And then what happens? Yes.
Is that like when you have like affinity towards something else?
They increase. They keep increasing. So they combine and they increase each other. They add. I brought a very special instrument. This is a pendulum. Please forgive me because it's very simple. But it's important to show this concept. So if we are tapping, this is actually a very important concept of pendulum that started with Newton. So let's say if I tap, you see that there's an oscillation. So there's a magnitude, there's a frequency. Of course, I'm not. If I continue tapping, then it continues going, as we are always doing. So here you see that the oscillation stops. In our case, it never stops. So let's say there is an oscillation, and if there is another source, if it's not in the same frequency, if it's not exactly in the same way, we make it stop, or they don't combine. But if it's exactly the same, we keep increasing it. So we increase the oscillation. So we call this resonance. This is a very important concept that sometimes the spirits they use, but we don't know what it means. So another term for resonance is affinity. So when you say that we tune to a spirit, we have affinity, it means that our thoughts have the same features as their thoughts. So they combine and together forms a one big thought. So if there's 3 spirits and they're all thinking the same frequency, in the same characteristic, exactly the same, they're all going to form one big thought with a high amplitude. So this is very important for us to study the influence of the spirits. It means they can influence you if you are in the same vibration as they are. So then their thoughts, you're going to absorb their thoughts, and since your own thoughts are in the same frequency, the same vibration, they're all going to add to a very big thought. What does that mean? That very big thought will be circulating on us, in our mental field. If we are not in the same frequency, if we are not tuned with them, we just feel this. We still feel those waves. We just don't add to them. So we feel each other's energies. If this wave travels, then in the distance forms energy. So then when we don't need to talk to a person to feel something. We read the person. We read the body language, which is much deeper than we think. We feel the thoughts, and it may cause us something pleasant or uncomfortable. So you don't need to say anything for people to know how you're feeling, because we are always receiving those thoughts. We cannot stop it. We can't stop it. It's part of us. It's not bad or good. It's just something that is part of us as intelligent spirits. We are always modulating. Tum, 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 tum. This is so important, this influence of spirits, this communication between thoughts, that Kardec, in the Spirits book, chapter 9, question 459, this is a very basic question. We always talk about it because it's very important. In question 459, he asked the spirits, do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and actions? The answer is, which is very well known, their influence on you in this regard is greater than you suppose, for very frequently it is they who guide you. So we have no idea, but sometimes, or as it's say here, frequently we are just reacting to their thoughts. That's the difference between reacting and acting. When we react, we have a very weak conscience, or we do something unconsciously. We are just reacting. We react in that way. And this reaction, it's sometimes connected to the way we've been acting for a long time, for several incarnations. Like reacting to an offense. Sometimes insults us, and we react to that the same way we've been reacting for a long time. We get mad, we feel rage, and we say something back. That's reaction. We are not thinking. And when we decide that we're going to react that way, we vibrate in that frequency, then it happens the effect that I showed you, the resonance. So we absorb all the other thoughts from the spirits that are around us, which are tuned to that frequency. So we absorb all those, let's say, ignorant thoughts, their ignorant energies, and we channel that all together. We all form one big thought of rage. And then we channel that, and then we insult the person back. So that's a reaction. An action would be different. An action will be if I feel that and I make the decision not to react that way. Action means that I'm putting energy in the system. So I hold myself back. That means that I need to put energy. I make an effort not to react that way. Then it means that I'm following a different path. Now I've chosen to follow a different road than the one I've been following for centuries. I'm not going to insult the person back. I know better now. And then also in the same situation happens the same resonance. But this time the thoughts that I'm going to absorb are those from the higher planes. So then I'm going to tune with a lot of spirits who think like me at that instant, that we need to forgive, that we need to love. And the only true path is the path of forgiveness. So in the same way that when I insult the person, I absorb all those very heavy fluids and I feel terrible. We never feel better after we react that way. We always feel worse. Then in the moment that I decide to act and ought to respond in the same frequency, I feel all the good fluid. I feel light. Even though sometimes it hurt the ego. We feel there is a small part of us, I should have said something. But that goes away. That passes. But the important is that we feel better. So Kardec continues to ask the spirits in the question 460, do we have our own thoughts plus others that are suggested to us? And the spirit answer, your soul is a spirit who thinks by itself. Nevertheless, you must have noticed that many thoughts occur to you all at the same time, with regards to the same subject, and that they frequently contradict one another. Well, they are always a combination of your own ideas and other spirits' ideas, and this is what renders you uncertain. You have several ideas within your mind battling it out with each other. So I don't know if you guys have... but when we start studying Spiritism, the first thing we learn that we have to study is ourselves. So we learn things, we read things, we come here to the lectures, and then we start seeing what happens to ourselves in our daily lives. Why do we get angry sometimes and we have no idea why? Why do we get sad sometimes? We have everything we need to live comfortably, to live well, and we still feel that sadness. So we start questioning that. And when we start studying ourselves, we see exactly this, that in our mind, there isn't only our thought circulating there. We have several thoughts. Sometimes we are in a situation and we know the right action that we need to take, but some thoughts occur to us in which we don't agree. Those are thoughts that are not pleasant to us. We don't want to act that way, but they're still there. They still come. And that's natural. That's natural. We won't change ourselves from one day to the other. It takes some time. So a part of us still vibrates in those lower frequencies. Sometimes a big part of us. And that small part, sometimes big part, it depends on the day, right? Depends on our mood, it changes. So that part will still receive those thoughts that are unpleasant to us. But the fact that sometimes we can understand that those thoughts are not coming from us and we should not respond to those thoughts is already a big victory. This is already a very huge victory. So we already know that those thoughts are not coming from us. So it's the influence of the spirits. It's not just spirits, it could be incarnate ones. So it doesn't matter if you have a body or not. We are all influencing each other. The difference is that our body, it creates kind of a shield. It doesn't respond that fast to the thoughts as when we are discarnate. When we are discarnate, it's instantaneous and very, very strong. That's why sometimes we think that we are the best person in the world and then we discarnate when we end up in the umbral. Why? Because the body was protecting us from our own thoughts. When we don't have a body, then it's very instantaneous and very strong. So our thoughts are naked. I think in one of André Luiz's books he used this term, that we are naked, so everybody can see who we really are. So the next thing for us to understand is how strong are those thoughts? How strong we can make those thoughts? So we have a picture there of a kid bending a spoon, very Matrix-like. So our thoughts are incredibly strong, very, very strong. Why can't I then lift this chair? Why can't I create a force strong enough to cancel the gravity on this chair? The only thing is concentration. Our thoughts are all over the place. That's the only thing that makes them look weak, but they're not. We just can't concentrate. We can. If you try to concentrate. Try to stay 10 seconds thinking only one thing. Try to do that, and you see that it's very hard. Our thoughts are very, very, very strong, but they're divided. If we could concentrate them, then we can make some incredible things. In the book of André Luiz, Mechanism of Mediumship, he tells us that we have a lot of small pieces in our minds. He called that dominiums. So let's imagine that every line of thought, every force in our thought is all pointing several ways. They are not pointing all to the same direction. They are pointing all over the place. Okay, these small. I imagine as small cubes. We have a lot of cubes, and each cube has a small force on it, and they're pointing upward, downwards, to the sides. When we concentrate, we start pointing all those cubes to the same direction. So that he calls that the dominions, magnetic dominions. And if we point one, then another one, then you have double the force, then another one, you have triple the force. So we do that when we pray. When we pray and we try to concentrate in what we are saying, we are concentrating the force of our thoughts in only one thing, in a good thing. But sometimes those thoughts, they are not just concentrated for good. They are concentrated in something really bad. And this is obsession. We are obsessed. We don't think in anything else. We only think on that. So our thoughts, they become very strong, but not in the good way. There's an example that I read once. If you take 2 quarters, let's say that André Luiz tells us that we can change the charge of things with our thoughts. When I say charge, is that you know that the matter is formed by atoms, right? And the atoms, they have kind of a polarity. So when we see objects, they all have 0 polarity. So they have the same negative charges as they have positive charges, so they cancel out. So then the chair doesn't attract another chair. So it's cancelled. Well, let's say, with following André Luiz teachings, that I can change the charge of the chair. If I have 2 quarters, and I put them 10 meters apart from each other, 10 meters, and I have, let's say that I have strength enough to change the charge of those small coins in 1%, only 1%. The force between them is the same force that gravity on the Everest. So imagine the weight of Everest, the Mount Everest, is the same force that will be between those 2 coins 10 meters apart. 1% unbalance in the charge. And André Luiz tells us that we can do that. The Mount Everest, you know, that is very hard to imagine that amount of force, but we can do that. It's just that we don't have the concentration of yet. He also told us that there are spirits who created our world. How did they do that? Machines? No, they're thoughts. One day we're going to learn to do that. So what all that has to do with obsession? A lot. I'm just explaining the basic mechanisms. Now we're going to learn a little bit. I'm going to dive deeper into what really is obsession. So the first thing for us to understand, after using all those basic concepts that I've been explaining, is the hypnotic effect. Obsession, it's very like a hypnotic effect. It follows the same mechanism. A person that is hypnotized is a person that trusts the hypnotizer. So you cannot hypnotize anybody who doesn't trust you. That person is completely closed. You can't do that. The person needs to be completely open. The person needs to trust you, to like you. And then it puts himself or herself under your service. So that's the same thing that happens in the obsession. So if we think from the beginning. So we have 2 spirits, right? They create the mental field, which is their thoughts. The field, it's if you feel the thought in every direction, every distance, every point. If I'm here, and then you have how my thoughts will look like from here, from here, from here, from here, from here, from here. So if I add all those points, is what we call the field. Okay, when I say field, it's just all around me, every direction. So if you have 2 spirits, and those 2 spirits, they emanate the same thought. I don't want to say bad thought, but ignorant thought. They just ignore, as we do so many situations. They might be thinking about revenge, rage, or any earthly pleasure. So then they connect by the same effect. Remember the pendulum? So the same effect of resonance. So they connect. They are connected to each other. So when they connect, we say that they are tuned They have affinity. We can almost say that they like each other. So they have an affinity on that particular moment. But as it happens in any relationship on earth and the incarnate world, in the spiritual world, there's always one from the two that have a strongest will, or it has a plan, has the highest, can see the big picture. So that person will take the lead. When you have a group of people, there's always one who stands out, right? Who takes the lead. It's natural. That person may be the only one who has an organized plan in his mind. So it's not naturally takes the lead. So then, between those two spirits, one will take the lead. We're gonna call this leader the magnetizer, and the other one the magnetized. Okay? So the leader, since they are both connected, because they agree to each other, they have affinity, the leader, the magnetizer, create or takes the lead and the other just follows. The magnetized follows the magnetizer. So there's a connection established. Once the magnetizer feels comfortable, because they like each other, they have affinity, so the magnetized feels comfortable. So then it means that he's going to open his defenses. So he's open. He's open to whatever the magnetizer sends. Completely open. So he puts himself in the magnetizer's mercy. Without knowing. Is when you have a person that likes to gossip, and it finds another one who also likes to gossip, they take pleasure in sitting down together and talk about others. They take pleasure on that. One will come with the new gossips of the day, which is the leader, and the other one will very willingly hear the gossip and agree with the gossips. Right? So it all makes sense. We can see how this happens because we experience this in our own lives. So then the other person is completely open, but the magnetizer has a plan. He is the leader. So then he starts to try to enlarge his commands over the magnetized. He starts to test his limits and see how far he can go. And soon the magnetized forms a thought. They have both combined their thoughts into one big one. But it had been going for so long that even when the magnetizer is not close, the magnetized is still continues to maintain that very big field. Once our thoughts start circulating, it's very hard to make them stop. It's very hard. Try to break an addiction. It is hard. Once it goes around, it's hard to make it stop. It's the same thing with obsession. So then the magnetized now, it keeps feeding that field of, let's say, in the example, the gossip. So then, when the magnetizer comes along, he just creates some kind of command. And the magnetizer starts feeling all over again, all that field. In the same example of people that gossip, if one is sitting very far away, and then the other one just look at that person and makes a face to the other one starts laughing. They are gossiping without talking. So that's that kind of a command. So the magnetizer, they can get close and they do something, and they triggers all that field in the other person, the magnetized. So that is the hypnotic effect. It's the same thing. It's when you see people on TV that now you are a chicken, and then the person really, I am a chicken. Of course, it's an exaggerated comic effect, but it can happen. Or in a different way, your arm is, you don't have your left arm anymore. So the person thinks, oh yeah, I can't feel my left arm. So that's hypnotism. It's the same thing with obsession. So a very practical example. Revenge. Very sad feeling, very sad situation, which is still very, I don't want to say natural, very common. We see in our civilization all the terrorist attacks that we are being seeing and the shootings. It's still related to revenge. They're always still looking for something. The illusion that we need to do justice by our own hands. And we can never do that, because then we create even more death, even more suffering for ourselves than stopping anything else and creating justice. So if we imagine that we want revenge on someone, we feel that we need to make justice with our own hands. And then there is a spirit that we don't even know that he's there, who wants revenge on us. We want revenge on someone else, and he wants on us. We both want revenge, so we connect with the same mechanism that I explained before. So both spirits are connected, but we don't acknowledge that there is a spirit beside us that wants revenge on us. So then, because we don't acknowledge him, we are completely open. So he comes to us and he inspires us with a plot of how I'm going to perform my revenge. And of course, that plot, or those figures in my mind, they are very pleasant, because that's exactly what I want. It's very pleasant to me. So I let them go. And I keep feeding that. And the spirit keep enlarging his command on me. He keep inspiring me, and I keep liking it. And I keep letting it go. Until the point where even if he's not there, he's not that close, he just creates his commands, and all the plots and all the things keep happening in my mind. Everything comes back again. All those images. We have a movie. We think about that so much that we have a movie going on in our mind with all the details. And the thing is, this magnetizer, this obsessor, he forces that on us. He keeps feeding that, keeps doing that commands in such a way that we concentrate our thoughts. We concentrate, and we know that when we concentrate, we make it stronger, almost infinitely. We've never heard of a saturation of the mental power. So we don't know how far we can go. But we can keep increasing our force around in us, and we don't know what will be the limitation. So the first thing that happens is we have a concentration of that revenge, so we don't think on anything else, and our organs, our body starts feeling that, because it's circulating around all our body. So the cells of our body starts responding to that force that we are creating, which now is very strong. So then we create an imbalance everywhere in our body, and then diseases come, the mental diseases. We know from the brains of nature all the parasites and bacteria and viruses that science studies, but there's a whole new reign in the spiritual world, the bacteria that we cannot see. in which they come attracted by these thoughts. They start living in us, and we don't see that. We feel that those pains, and we feel that we are always tired. We feel bad, and then we go to the doctor and we do a blood test. There's nothing there. There's nothing there, of course. Science cannot detect those bacteria yet, or those viruses, or whatever they are. But we are forming them. And something else happens. Since we are thinking only on those thoughts, we start losing track of our jobs, our lives in general, our families. So we start disconnecting from them. Because the only thing we can think about is that revenge, that fixed thought. So in this, what I have explained to you is the types of obsession. So we have simple obsession, we have fascination, and we have possession. Of course, nobody's ever going to possess our body. But we open our defense so much to let the obsessor in that he starts taking over our nervous system. If he takes over our nervous system, he can control our muscles. And he can make us twitch and dance as a puppet. Oh, and this example of revenge can be extrapolated to any addiction, jealousy, envy, pride, all those things that we normally feel. The problem with obsession is, well, it becomes an obsession. It's the only thing we can think about. It's the only thing. We don't think in anything else. We let it grow. We can't avoid feeling those things completely today. We still feel all that. I was thinking about that yesterday, and of course I was trying to see how I feel about it, and I realized something very simple, but probably most of us feel. When we are watching a movie, and there's a really bad guy, a villain, what end do we want for that movie? Do we want an end where that bad guy regrets and goes to the good guy? Please forgive me, I'm completely wrong, just forgive me. Or do we want an alternative end where the bad guy explodes? He's killed in a very terrible way. Which one do you think we prefer to watch? Because that's what we still want to do. In some way we still want to do that. And we do that through the movies. We don't go outside and do that. We see in the movies. We are still kind of connected with all that. But when we study this mechanism, we know how to avoid it. When this starts going on in our mind, we need to do something. What's something? Treatment and cure. Or what is really that cure? First thing, understanding. So we already know the mechanism of obsession. Another thing that we have to understand is, who am I? Who we are here. We are spirits evolving. We are evolving spirits. We come to this planet. The whole idea of incarnation is to develop morally. So it won't be vacation. It will be hard. Why it will be hard? Because we have to work in our weak parts. What is already strong, we don't need to work on it. It's already strong. So we are going to be poked in the weak spots. So that's why incarnation is still hard. So then we will feel pain. But it doesn't mean that pain will never go away. It's part of our trial here. There is no victims here. we are no victims. That's one of the situations that drives us to obsession. It's self-pity. Oh, that person shouldn't have talked to me that way. I need to do something. I'm better than that. That's terrible. Then we start having that thought over and over again. We go to bed at night and then we keep thinking on that. So that's what causes the obsession to happen. It's the fixed thought. Those thoughts will always go back and forth in our mind. The problem is that when we fixed, we tune, we zero in one thought. If we understand that we are not victims, then we see if that person tells me something like that and that is allowed by God, it is because I need to work on that. Whatever happens to me, it's something to make me stronger. There is no victims. This is a very powerful thought. We will never be victims, and we should not behave as victims. So this is a very important thing. We have our defects and we also have our virtues. We are all learning. We have a lot of good things in us, and we have to focus on that. Sometimes people hurt, but people also make us laugh and make us feel good. And if we pay attention, most people that we relate to in life are good people. But we keep thinking on the bad people. The guy that told me that today, or the rude person in the subway, and we forget all the other persons who respect our space and who were kind to us in the subway. We only think in that one person. It's natural, but once we understand that, we can start working on that. Second, who is the obsessor? There is a passage in the book The Good News with the apostle Judas Thaddeus. It's not Judas Iscariot, it's another apostle. So this Judas Thaddeus, he was very impressed with the capacity of Jesus to heal those who had mental issues or the obsessed, those who came with the devil or demon, and Jesus could cure them with his hands. And he was very impressed. Some of the apostles could do that too, like Peter, Simon Peter. But Thaddeus couldn't do it. He couldn't cure anybody. He was trying to expel the devil, expel the demon, and the demon was still there. So then Jesus had to come and cure the person. So then he went to Jesus and he said that he couldn't understand why he couldn't cure it. And Jesus said, "The disciple of the gospel do not fight against his own brother. As God do not fight with his children. He only fights against all ignorance, as a father who works incessantly for the victory of his love together with all humanity." The obsessor is our brother. He's connected to us, so he's like us. So what Jesus did, he took care of both. Of the demon, which is the obsessor, and the obsessed. He took care of both of them. He loved both of them. They are both sons of God. So when we feel those thoughts that come to our mind, we pray to both of us. We pray to receive strength, to tune to good thoughts, to be able to resist our bad inclinations, but we pray to that Spirit who is with us too. He is in need too. He needs help too. Sometimes he is the victim. In quotes, we know there is no victims, but he is the one that we are attracting. Let's say that we have a drinking problem, and someday that spirit clinged to us when we were drinking, and that spirit decided, okay, I don't want to drink anymore with this guy. I don't want to keep going to those places. I want to stop this. But we keep thinking drinking. And we keep attracting that spirit. So we are the obsessor. The incarnate ones. So we don't know which one it's creating the most impact. So both has to be treated. The obsessor is not something or someone to be hated. It's someone to be helped as much as we need. So this understanding is very important in avoiding and treating obsession. Another thing that is said this time in Missionaries of the Light, where André Luiz, he participates an obsession section in a Spiritist center, and there is this instructor who is always with him. I think is the same one that was with him in the Messengers, Alexander. So then Alexander tells André Luiz, with the restricted sight of the earthly body, it's very difficult to identify who the true victim is. So if we see just the obsessed, we don't know which one is the leader. We don't know which one is the dominant one. We can't see that. But it doesn't matter. We treat both. We help both. Another thing that is very important for us to remember. Jesus is always ready to help us. There is always help ready. It's like it's not going to take that much for an ambulance to come. Sometimes it's very fast. But in the spiritual world, when we need help, it comes instantaneously. The difference is we need to realize that we need help and we ask. All we need to do is ask, and we are going to receive. We are never alone. They are always around. We put ourselves in a lonely place, but because we want to. If you ask, we are going to receive help. Always. We have this house here. This seems, it's very simple with a basement, and we have dry walls. It's like any other house. From the moment that we enter the door, we are protected. There is a field around this that does not allow those companions to enter, only if they are allowed to watch the lecture as we do. So we are protected. So this is a place that we can be treated. Then we receive the pass. We can pray more comfortably because our companion is not there creating a mess in our heads. But the most important part is the inner transformation. That's the real treatment. Is the inner transformation. We change ourselves from inside out. So we try to change. Joana de Angelis, in the book Existential Conflicts, she even advises us to go dancing or do exercising, to avoid the concentrated thought, to do something else. Go do something else. Go take a walk. When you see that those thoughts keep coming in your mind, there's nothing else happening. There's nothing else. But you keep feeding that. You create a whole new situation in your mind. That happens very commonly with jealousy. So there's nothing happen, but we create everything in our mind, and that keeps going round and round and round and round, and we keep thinking on that, and we don't stop thinking on that, and we don't sleep, and soon there is a problem because we create one, and there will be one because we create it. So when we see that starts happening, go do something. One thing that helps me a lot is pray every day in the morning, pray every day in the night, pray every day in the afternoon. When you remember, you make a prayer. There's so many things for us to thank for. When we walk around, we like to see the trees, the green trees, and here in Canada, everybody takes care of their lawn, so everything is pretty. We see the blue sky, so give thanks for all that, for the air that you are breathing, for being here in this country that we have chosen to live, and we were given the chance to be here. So it's small things that we learn to do, learn to pray. This already disconnects us from those concentrated thoughts. If it's still happening, well, do your work. Be useful. So use your mind to solve problems, to make things better. We all have our professions. It doesn't matter what we do, we are trying to make civilization better. Even if we are doing landscaping, that is important too. We all like to see our city pretty. So we all have an important thing to do. So let's just do it and stop thinking in useless things. But be useful. Gospel at home. This protection that we have here, we can create that too in our own house. Pray in our house. Clean your house with gospel at home. When we do gospel at home, those companions, they hear that too. So sometimes it is not, we feel a little bit of uncomfort when we have to stop everything and we have to concentrate and do our gospel at home. We want to watch a movie, we want to watch a series, I want to do something else, I want to go to the supermarket, but no, that's the time for the gospel at home. And then we feel that uncomfort. Of course it is uncomfort. If it was comfortable, then we wouldn't have any problem with obsession. We would already be on that frequency. That only shows us that we are not in that frequency all the time. So then we make an effort. Make an effort. It's not just for us. It's for our companions too. They are our brothers and our sisters. So we don't have to hate them or fear them. They are like us, very much like us. We help them as much as we want to be helped. And cure. So we talked about treatment. I'm going to talk about cure. So in this passage, Alexandre, the same one talking with André Luiz, he says, how are we supposed to break a connection that has been going for centuries? We cannot cure. And he always advises us not to use that term or the terminology when we create our groups in a Spiritist house. We are not going to form a group to cure obsession. We cannot do that. We are too restricted. It's the same thing as saying that we are going to form a group to make people stop smoking. Can we do that? Can we make someone stop smoking? We can't. The person has to stop smoking by itself. We can help, but we cannot make the decision. It's inside out. So we cannot make a group to cure obsession. That is between the obsessor and the obsessed. Sometimes the obsessor wants to stop, but the obsessed doesn't. So that's another situation where we want to treat both of them. So the spirits, they cannot just come and disconnect both of them. It doesn't work that way. This disconnection probably cause any more problem. Like a heroin addict, and you just stop giving the drug, cold turkey. That's not the treatment that we see they do. They just decrease the dosage. So obsession, it's a very critical spiritual disease, and we can only cure that ourselves by putting effort and trying to be a better person. So it's going to be part of our lives for some time yet. But we can avoid, which is not that hard to avoid, it's the concentrated thought, the fixed thought. If you feel that it's coming, you feel that it's linger on for too long, do something. Pray, walk, dance, exercise. Do something. Or go to work and concentrate on your work. All this, it's our road to peace of mind. We are going to reach it. Someday, those small things are going to stop happening. During our life, how do we know that Spiritism and coming here and listening to all this is the correct thing to do? We have our small victories in our lives. Those small victories make us feel so good. So maybe we have 9 out of 10 defeats, but we have one victory. That one victory tells us that's the right way to do. For those who didn't know, I used to come here with my scooter, electric scooter. I used to live at in front of that, the building. So, and I used to use that scooter to go to Rice University too, where I was studying. And that scooter was stolen. So it was very hard to get that scooter with the scholarship stipend, but it was stolen. When I came out of Rice and I saw that my scooter had been stolen, for a very quick moment, I thought, what did I do to deserve that? It was the only thing I had. What did I do? Because I know nothing happens without the will of our Lord. So why the hell did He allow that scooter to be stolen? But that was very fast. After that moment, I thought, probably something would have happened. Some accident. I would be involved in an accident. I would have hurt myself. Or maybe I was too attached to that material scooter. So it hurts. But that small moment was my victory. So I was very happy that I wasn't lingering on the revolt. So that was it was a happy moment for me. Even though it still hurts, but it's a victory that I will always have, and shows me that I'm better because I'm trying to move on. I'm come here, I put effort, so I know that this is the right path. So those small victories tell us that this is the right way to do, and we need to focus on that rather than focus on our defeats. The last one. This is just to remember that we are all together. We are all together. We don't need to go through those difficulties by ourselves. We come here and we bring our experiences. We take paths. So we have friendship. Don't isolate ourselves. We have our families. We have love all around us. If you feel depression, don't isolate yourself. Go out there. People are good, and there are several good things in this world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafael. And as usual, who's got questions? And as usual, we have silence. So, and as usual, I will start and let you guys move on. I think something you said is very important about the obsession not being unilateral, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands what that means. And I'm going to ask you, is it possible for an incarnate to obsess a discarnate? And can you give us an example?
Yes. As I said, the thoughts, they are not just from spirit to, let's say, discarnate to incarnate. The thoughts happen to every intelligent being. It doesn't matter if you have a body or not. So sometimes we are the ones who call them. Sometimes they want to get free from an addiction, they want to follow another road, but in some time they were connected to us and we are forcing them to follow the same road. It's like I'm trying to stop smoking and there's a guy that's always inviting me to smoke and smoking in my face. Sometimes we do that with them. We call them. So it's not just because they don't have a body that they are the bad guys.
I just remember an example of an obsession in this way. It's in one of the books by Andrelli that the daughter was obsessing with his carnal father. And she was constantly sought, like, I don't remember exactly the story, but she was obsessed. I don't know if it was because of the money or something related, and she couldn't let the father move on. And so the spirit decided to apply a forgetfulness in the father, the discarnate one, so he could break that connection between incarnate and discarnate.
And if for those who enjoy and have read a lot of André Luiz's books, it seems like he's obsessed with obsession, because it's that theme that comes up very often, including for those who have been enjoying the summer book club that we run here every year, the book Liberation. We are also seeing a terrible story of an obsession on a poor girl called Daisy or Margarida. Any questions? Thank you very much. Let's get prepared for our pass and then some brief notices and a final prayer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.